She's a doctor.
Hi, I'm Dr. Dovek, and she's a dietitian.
Hey, I'm Hannah Schuyler, and together we are the
DoctorXDietitian collab. Oh my gosh, we still got it.
We still do. We both looked at each other like, wait, do we know what we're doing anymore?
I know, but we are here, and today we're talking about relationships. I know. Supportive ones, not so supportive ones, divorce. There's a lot of concern around that.
There is, and I think it's something we're seeing more and more of, and people kind of expressing to us these concerns of my partner especially is not supportive about bariatric surgery.
I know. We have a lot of patients, and this is something that, I mean, we will see patients come in, they'll be very excited, typically female, I'll be honest, and they'll go through the whole process. They'll do all of their preoperative workup, they've done Nutri, they've really, educated themselves, they're ready, they've researched it, let's go. Oh, I'm going to have to cancel my surgery. Yeah. My partner, my husband, my boyfriend, my whoever is not supportive of it.
Yeah.
Oh, it's crushing.
It is crushing. And it's for us too, because we can see you can feel the change in their behavior in those calls.
Yeah, it's like this thing that you felt so sure of, I've made this big decision, these big moves, I'm here and doing it. And then it's like, oh, I guess I didn't really want it. Yeah. I guess I can try diet and exercise, maybe the meds, one more time. And you can tell they're deflated, but I also feel like, as somebody that's obsessed with empowerment and, all of that, like, why are you letting anyone else's opinion come in?
Right.
Get it? It's.
Yeah. I think, I agree. I'm like, who cares if they don't support it? But in the end, it is the person that, generally you're living with. It is your person usually that is your normal support system. So the idea of going through this without them or without that, being really on board would be really challenging.
Yeah, I know. And I get that, and it's the people that are supposed to love and support you the most.
No matter what. Yeah.
Might feel this way. And I think a lot of it is, and we're going to do a podcast on this, it's change. It's changing the comfortable life as they know it. A lot of, especially the women who undergo bariatric surgery are typically the ones that take care of everyone else. And they're used to maybe cooking or maybe, the kids are worried. Oh, we don't want to lose mom. The husband, the spouse is worried. What is it going to be like? Are you going to be a different person? Are you going to, it's change.
A lot of times it's the first time in maybe a long time that person is putting themselves first.
Yes.
Which is really uncomfortable for the other people who are used to being put first.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
I really believe that's the root of almost all of it.
Yeah.
And that takes a lot to unravel. It takes a lot of probably therapy and self-reflection to really be able to see that, I do want this. I do deserve this. And I shouldn't let this whole thing kind of almost take over my mindset on it. And that's tough.
Yeah, and I think that's a job for the partner as well as going through that mindset change and head work of why do I feel this way about this surgery, about this change? Like, okay, and I don't know that everybody is on board, and it's hard to be on board with a change that you haven't made the decision to do. Like, and now you're being told, well, accept it or go to therapy about this or whatever. And it's like, well, I didn't make that decision, So I'm not in that, what we call like the stages of change. I'm not in that stage. I'm nowhere near it.
Well, there's different things. So in the relationship, whether it's the man making the decision or the woman making the decision to undergo bariatric surgery, their partner, they're in a marriage. Let's just talk about marriage. Let's say they also struggle with their weight. And like you're saying, they don't want to give up certain lifestyle habits for themselves personally, whether it be like you directly cooking for me, buying the food, those sorts of things, or what I order and what I do. And I don't want this and so then you're going to really like sabotage their mindset and say, I'm not supportive because I'm just not ready to make this massive leap like you are, you're saying.
Exactly.
So there's that, but there's also, sometimes we hear my partner and my spouse, they don't get it because they don't struggle with their weight or they love to work out or they do different things and we're just different, physiques, if you will.
Yeah.
And, or maybe even it's just like, we talked about this all the time. Like there's so multifactorial why you're overweight, obese,
Yeah.
genetics, environment, lifestyle, all of these different things. And so maybe your bodies are just different and they just truly just don't understand. Like, well, why don't you come with me to the gym? Like,
Right.
I hear that all the time. Like they're a personal trainer. Like, I'll show you how to lift weights. Like,
Yeah.
let's do that.
Let's do that. Yeah. And it's like, well, I've done that before.
Yeah.
Yeah. Usually by the time they're with us, again, we've said this many, many times. By the time they're with us, they have tried all of these
Oh,
things.
yes.
People have done that. And I think that is a really good point too. And you can kind of see that difference. It's very visually like obvious, like, okay, well, yes, you have someone who's a normal quote unquote weight
Yeah.
versus the patient. And it's like, they probably have never struggled a day in their life to maintain that weight. Or if they have, it's been very easy for them to, lifestyle their way out of it.
Yeah. So there's those considerations. Now, I want to also take it to the flip side. We won't just talk about the doom, the gloom, the divorce, where you are going to get there. But starting at first, relationships can actually, and I've seen it a ton of times, improve after
Yeah.
bariatric surgery in a way that I think a lot of people just almost didn't expect to see coming.
Yeah.
It is also the whole thing about changing and doing this. It is the fear of the unknown. So again, do I want to do this? But the good things is, first off, the person who undergoes it, their quality of life is obviously improved by losing weight and being more active and finding better clothes, and all of the NSVs and scale victories that we see, can be improved by having surgery. And I think that when you feel more satisfied, you do get more confidence. And we're going to talk about confidence as it can be a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
In that it can strengthen your relationship. It has a great foundation, or it can expose some of the insecurities, perhaps, of the other.
Yeah.
When you feel like, yeah, why have I been listening to your opinion and not standing up for myself and speaking my mind for all of this time? So you might find that positively impacts relationships, obviously. Healthier habits. I mean, your whole not just eating patterns change, but like your activity. You might be now, if your partner spouse is out there climbing mountains, you might be like, all right, never really felt physically able to do it, but let's go.
Now let's do it. Now we can do things more together.
Exactly.
Yeah,
it doesn't have to be something like rock climbing. I mean, I would never do that. But it could be something like taking a walk.
Yeah, exactly. Just getting out and having more access to more things.
Yes.
In general. Yeah.
Let me insert your relationship here. Do you and V work out together?
No, we have. So when we were in Chicago a little bit, we started to go. He joined the gym I was at, and we were doing like a couple times we went and he was showing me like some weightlifting stuff because I wanted to kind of get into that. And then we'll go for walks and stuff together.
Yeah.
So that's the extent of it.
Yeah, I think.
What about you and Aaron?
Well, we do not.
Okay.
Well, actually, no, we do. We play tennis together now.
You guys do tennis, right?
Yeah, that's my new thing. This tennis. With that,
she's obsessed.
I am obsessed because I don't like being bad at something. I mean, who likes being a beginner? Yeah. I mean, that's the whole thing about even when you decide to embark upon this. You don't know anything about the food, the lifestyle. So it's like, I don't know if I want to learn all this. So. Yeah, there's tennis we do, which I think is
Did
fun.
Aaron play tennis before?
No.
Okay, so you're both beginners going into it new.
Yes. Okay. And he's a man, more athletic, but I feel like I'm keeping up. Like we both we are both consistently inconsistent.
Okay.
Like sometimes I'm like, that was like Serena Williams level hit. I just did what was that? And then the next 10 I'll hit over the fence and bash someone's car.
Yeah.
I definitely have done that too. Now the other thing, we don't take walks together because we have kids. And so one of them is inside and Aaron just doesn't like to take walks. And if I do take a walk with him, he always tells me I walk too fast.
Oh yeah. I get that too.
It's like, well, I mean, I want to kind of get my heart rate up a little bit. It's not just
now
strolling.
It's not so much a problem because now I'm waddling along.
Oh my gosh. Your heart rate right now is probably over 100.
Already high. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And then we used to take personal training together.
Okay.
And I like that a lot.
Yeah.
He loves to go to F45,
which
is a 45-minute class of resistance training. It's actually really well done.
Yeah.
I'm just
I
so
think that
weak
would be
now.
my jam.
You would love it.
I would like something. I need structure.
Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah.
So yeah, so okay, so are you already working out with your spouse, or if you're not, maybe you'll start, and even just like walks, like you reconnect. Like you don't have to be like
Absolutely.
running or sweating or dying.
Yeah.
You can stroll, I suppose. I
You
guess people
can.
do that.
Yeah. It stresses me out to go for strolls. I find them very stressful.
Always. If I'm not literally like talking fast, walking fast,
Yeah.
moving fast, thinking fast, whatever,
Yeah.
I am stressed by that for sure.
Yeah.
That's why we get along. We get
Yeah.
along well. Hannah does balance out the insanity though. So
It's a little more mellow, but
she is,
yeah.
yes. She is definitely. Then we have a whole episode on this. Obviously, there could be some increased intimacy.
Yes.
I've heard like my patients tell me things. I've developed these relationships. They're like,
Yeah.
my sex life is wild now.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know what? Good for you.
I just saw that on our Facebook group. Someone asked about that. They're pre-op and they were asking about it. And that comment thread is
Oh,
something else
oh,
being
do tell.
thrown
I
around.
haven't seen this one yet.
And all different positions
Okay,
and all the
okay.
things that these people who are post-op are loving.
Well, I love to hear that from your
Yes.
patients because, it's funny. We were at the bariatric retreat in 2022, about a year and a half ago.
Uh-huh.
We had different panels, and one of the panels was one on fertility, like women's health things. It was by an OBGYN.
Yeah.
And somebody asked the question that, okay, I get it. We are not supposed to get pregnant within the first, year and a half, ideally,
Mhm.
at least 12 months. But we have a whole podcast on that as well. But, and she says, so what should I do? Because I'm worried about birth control, its efficacy, its absorption. Should I do an IUD? Like, I want to make sure that my chances are great. So should I just abstain from sex? And I often think about the OB saying, life is too short not to have good sex.
Yeah.
So at some point you're like, okay, it makes you feel more alive
Yeah.
almost because you're like, let's go for it. And we talk a lot about those considerations too. There's obviously a lot about behind intimacy and
Yeah.
having that sort of physical, relationship with your partner. So this could really reignite things.
Yeah, and it's a connection thing too. I mean, I think, when we think about people being scared for this change, it's kind of like, well, these are some of the flip sides of that, has your relationship been struggling because intimacy has been a real challenge for you? And that can really make or break for some relationships.
Yeah, that's very, very true.
Because it's not just the physical act of it, it's that the emotional connection of it in a relationship.
Yeah.
Or, outside of a relationship.
Yeah, exactly. Like, do your thing, people. Not everybody's married, and
Yeah.
and we have a whole host of different ages and backgrounds. We got all kinds of patients, and that's the thing. Obesity does not discriminate. So we unfortunately it impacts pretty much everyone.
Yeah.
So let's talk about divorce now, because I think that's why a lot of people are tuning in, and I think that's a massive concern. And when you do a simple Google search, you can look up divorce rates after, and then it will complete bariatric surgery. It like completes the sentence. This is often looked up.
Yeah.
Because people obviously don't want to go through that. So first off, let's talk about the overall American divorce rate.
Mm-hmm.
So 40 to 50% of first marriages end in divorce.
Yeah.
Anyway, so 1 and 2 are going to end in divorce anyway.
Regardless.
If you get bariatric surgery, you don't have bariatric surgery, you're overweight, you're not, that's it.
Yeah.
So why is that? So, and then the second marriages, each time you get married, it skyrockets up to 60 to 67%. And it just keeps going up the more times you get married.
Yeah.
You're more likely to break it off.
Once you've
and the
done
whole
it,
thing.
once you've had a divorce, just get another one. It's fine.
Exactly. So it's just like, yeah, whatever. Here we go. So let's talk about the different reasons why people get divorced. Do you know any of them? What would you think it would be? Some of the biggest, like the dynamics on it.
I would guess infidelity is probably a top one.
Yep.
I think age probably plays a factor into it. I always joke that statistically, by not getting married until I was in my 30s, I just avoided a divorce.
Interesting thought.
Because I think a lot of times people get married very young and then realize like they haven't grown into themselves. But I don't know if that's showing up on
What
there.
do you think about here? I looked this up, and while we're on it, what do you think about couples who've been married for 30 or more years.
Ooh.
Do you think that they would have a higher rate?
I would think they'd have a lower rate, but something like an illness could come into play. Um, or again, that you've gone through that whole thing, you've raised your kids, they're out of the house, and now you're different people than you were 30 years ago.
Yeah, I think that that might play a little bit into it. Interestingly, there is actually there's a name to this. It's called gray divorces.
Huh.
Gray divorces happen one out of every 3 divorces are gray divorces, people married for
Wow.
over 30 years. I'm shocked by that. And if you're married for 40 years or more, it does go down then. 40
Okay.
years or more, it's still 1 in 8.
Wow.
So
That's
it's,
pretty wild to me. God, imagine dating at that point.
oh, I don't know. The Golden Bachelor's out there now.
That's true.
So I mean, I should watch that. I heard that that is pretty good. Did you see
Really?
this?
I haven't watched it. I've never been a bachelor or bachelorette person.
Me neither.
I've tried, and it
I
just
know. I got to draw the line somewhere.
it just kind of annoys me.
I know, but I'm almost thinking I would revisit it with the Golden
Yeah.
Bachelor because it looks very sweet, and these people are like, again, talking about coming alive.
Yeah, it's like a rejuvenate. It's not like these young hot kids.
Yes.
I don't know.
I love
Watching pretty people struggle to date is kind of hard to do.
Aw,
Yeah.
who will I go with?
Oh, I'm so
I know.
sorry.
When I was in Nashville, I lived in the Gulch, which is an area where like all the wannabe like musicians and things like
Mhm.
that live. Like when Taylor Swift was like a teen, she had a place in the Gulch. So I
Uh-huh.
was like, it was called the Icon Building and it's still there. She had a penthouse and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna live in the area that, and gosh, now Taylor Swift. I'm
Yeah,
like,
right.
wow. But anyway, there was all these people who lived in my building that were like trying to be or were on The Bachelor.
Oh,
And they're like,
wow.
oh my gosh, there's The Bachelorette. Like she lived, I forget, I can't even remember her name, but it was almost like people were like, oh, that's what they were striving to be.
Yeah.
Quick side note on that whole thing. I don't even know how I got off on that tangent. I had like so many good thoughts about all
I
of this.
know.
But anyway, yeah, there's that whole thing about dating and all of those things. And I love master classes.
Mhm.
And there was one on there by Esther Pearl, who is a relationship expert.
Mhm.
And she talks about all kinds of different relationships, not just, ones that you're in from personal, but also like work relationships.
Right,
And
not just romantic relationships.
so
or
she
anything,
has
yeah.
all kinds of awesome thoughts. I
Mhm.
thought it was like really deep. And she has a TED talk about this as well. I really like went into like a rabbit hole of following her and all of that.
Mhm.
And you bring up infidelity and she talks a little bit about now in the age of cell phones and all of that and the digital era, it's like you can see sometimes relationships unfolding and it's like death by a thousand cuts she
Yeah.
talks about. But in this podcast, she said something to me that was so fascinating. And that soundbite was that out of all of our lives, most of us will have 2 or 3 major relationships in our life.
Mhm.
And oftentimes they're with the same person.
Okay.
So I thought that was so big
Yeah.
about how your relationship dynamics can change in a way that your relationship can truly get so better that it's almost unrecognizable
It's
to
like
how it
brand
was.
new. Yeah.
And I think that bariatric surgery is a thing that will make it a new relationship,
Yeah.
which could be hopefully either it can be a lot better.
Yeah,
So there is
exactly.
a lot there.
So wait, you mentioned the overall divorce rate.
Yes, so the
What
overall
is
divorce
the
rates.
divorce rate with bariatric surgery?
So the-
Let's put it out there.
Let's put it out there. So there's a lot of studies
Mhm.
that are looking at it. So there's not like a definitive, like this is what it is. It's
Okay.
like really hard to study. So there are different things. Now, some studies that are out there, for example, 2018 JAMA study, it suggested that there is a significant decrease in divorce rates among couples after one partner underwent bariatric surgery compared to a control group.
Okay.
Another study in the Obesity Surgery Journal, 2017, found the majority of relationships either remained stable or even improved after one of the partners underwent bariatric surgery. And finally, one in SWORD, which is our biggest journal, this is Surgery for Obesity and Related Diseases Journal, in 2019, showed that there's actually positive changes in relationship satisfaction, communication, and sexual intimacy post-bariatric surgery.
Okay.
So there are 3 that are actually showing that it's a misconception
Positive.
that
Yeah.
that it is better. Now, there are some that are negative. There is one by the University of Pittsburgh that was put out in 2022 showing that 18% of unmarried participants actually got married compared to only 7% in the control that did
Okay.
not have surgery.
Okay.
So more people, that might go back to that confidence thing that
Yeah.
you are getting out there dating. Oh my gosh, speaking of, quick tangent, our awesome patient who's on the Facebook support group who said, she was over 500 pounds. She's very public with her story that she had never dated before, and now she's dating.
I love that.
I love that too. You know who I'm talking about. And I'm sure she's listening. And
Yeah.
we are all, I think all 10,000 of us in that support group are like, how was your date?
Yeah,
How was it? What did you guys talk about? She's like, it was really smooth.
Yeah.
There was no awkward silences.
love
There was
it.
no shortage of conversation.
Yeah.
So that to me is like the epitome
Yeah.
of what can happen.
For sure.
Anyway, I could go on and on, but that was incredible. So, I mean, her chances of getting married are probably higher.
increased, yeah.
And, just for all these reasons. And then 8% in this study of married participants got divorced during the study time versus 4% of the general population. So this study is showing that it's higher.
Yeah.
So I don't think that there's by any means any definitive conclusion that having bariatric
way or the
surgery
other.
is going to increase it, because it's already unfortunately 1 and 2.
Yeah. Well, and I think that when you do look at that and you do say like, okay, yeah, it's already half the population, or half of marriages are going to end in divorce. You can't say either that wouldn't have happened to that specific couple if surgery hadn't happened,
Yes.
So I think there's that aspect of it too, that it's a correlation versus causation thing, which is just, so this is, you want me to nerd out, we're always going to do it. But correlation and causation, this is what gets people confused with any kind of scientific study, is they say, well, there's I don't know, what are the dumb ones? Like if you're a man or if you have brown hair, you're more likely to get struck by lightning.
Oh, yes.
Like they're correlated. Yes, maybe that's accurate, but there's no reason for it. It just is a thing that kind of happens. So again, the correlation of sort of divorce might not be caused by the surgery itself.
Very true. I think that there's basically a lot of these things, like you said, they're inconclusive because there's just such a plethora of variables that you really can't predict
You can't control for.
Now, there's all these that are saying that 9% did get divorced or separated within 4 years of surgery, and it's interesting to me. Now, I don't know how much this has been studied, but I would say that if you are going to go through it together, I think pretty much undoubtedly it's gonna strengthen you.
If both people in a couple were to go for surgery.
I think so.
Yeah.
If they're both struggling with their weight, I mean, we have lots of amazing examples even in our practice here now of husband and wife. And it's and I also think it's like great to commiserate and do it on the same day and just really like, okay, the diet is we're both on full liquids.
The whole lifestyle too together.
Exactly.
Here's another thought on this. I'm gonna turn it a little bit.
Okay.
We're also always assuming that divorce is a bad thing.
Ooh,
and I think that when we look at this as, it can be that you realize that maybe you do come out of this more confident, and maybe for your partner it's not great, but why are we making all of this about the partner?
Yes.
Like this could potentially just be a really good thing for that person who has undergone surgery. They have realized, like, I've gotten my confidence back. I'm not the person that I was, and I've outgrown this relationship, or now I can see all of the things in this partnership that were not great.
Yes.
Or that you're just not the same, again, you're just not the same people anymore. And maybe for both of you in the long term, ending that relationship is going to be the net positive.
Yes.
Because like sometimes you're not in the right relationship.
Oh my gosh,
it just
so
happens to
true.
people all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you in the pre-op area, seeing this partner sitting there, they're not really engaged, they're on their phone, they're not making eye contact with me. I'm like, this is a doozy of a person here.
Yeah.
Sitting here. Like like I love this person, this patient. And I'm like, why are you with this person?
Yeah.
I think all the time I'm like, oh, I can't wait. Like, let me get the countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, good. He's gone.
We're evil.
I know we are, but when you're too close to it, you don't see it and you don't realize how detrimental some of these people are to you from so many aspects.
And again, it doesn't mean that person then isn't going to go and find the relationship that actually works for them. So I think that it can be positive for both people. Like I don't want that to come out and be like, yeah, just divorce, break up or whatever, but
Sure.
I think it can really put both people back into a new light of this just wasn't what we thought it was all along.
I agree. I agree. And just back to the whole reasons for relationships to not work out.
Mhm.
One of the big ones is communication.
Yeah.
It's that you can't resolve conflicts. And a lot of that does have to do with stress.
Mhm.
And I mean, we're building a house now. We're
Mhm.
starting, there's all those things. And it's stressful and how you resolve conflicts. I think one of the biggest things that people get stressed over obviously is money,
Mhm.
financial strain and financial difficulties and disagreements over how money should be managed and what you should
Mhm.
spend it on. And just now the holidays are upon
Yeah.
us and budgets and spreadsheets
Yeah.
and oh gosh, do you really have to get that nail out on? Like, yes I do.
Yeah.
Like, like, don't question my natural hair color
Yeah,
here,
no, it's
like
100% natural, you guys.
100, yes, it's
How it
found in
grows out of
nature.
our head.
Yes, this white hair color, and this stuff is this natural look is really it's really expensive
Yeah.
actually, as you know too.
Mhm.
So there's all of that. You brought out infidelity, just, trust and that sort of thing. And that's tough. And lack of compatibility.
Yeah.
Back to what you were saying before. People have differences in values
Yeah.
and their goals in life, their just lifestyle and how they live,
Yeah.
you know?
And again, I think that that's where it is. It's a lot of times you can probably look at when did you get into this relationship? Where were you at in your life at that time? And have things changed? I mean, you look at the political spectrum has ended people's relationships
Oh,
in the last decade or
that's
so.
true.
People that has come in and changed. So it's like again, these are all just confounding things that happen in life regardless,
Yes,
of irrespective of bariatric surgery that can happen and change a person to cause this.
absolutely.
Another relationship, so obviously we've been focusing a lot on romantic relationships,
Yes.
but I also think this plays into the whole family dynamic. And like
Yes.
we kind of touched on earlier, especially with our women, we know that oftentimes they are the primary caretaker. They may also be working, outside of the home. Obviously we're in modern society where women are working and participating and doing all of that. So I think that that's the other thing that people can be afraid of. And maybe it's not that the kids are afraid, but it's that the partner maybe is afraid of, well, how is this going to change? And now am I going to have to step up at home?
Mm,
What is our family's diet going to look like? Because obviously we put, patients are on a more restrictive diet. I talk to a lot of people who have kids and they're like, well, how do I still feed my family? Because obviously a kid's diet is much different. They need more things. They're growing. Their bodies are developing. We're not trying to restrict and we're not trying to, I'm always very cautious of, we don't want to put any disordered eating patterns onto these kids or anything that's
mm,
coming because their parent is going through this
right.
process. So I think that that's something else. And that I do think that's a valid and legitimate concern for somebody to have. And a lot of times it's the patient themselves that's having that, but I
Mhm.
can also see it from the partner side of things of like, okay, so what do dinners look like now?
Yeah.
When you're over here with your little plate and it's no carbs and it's, like this, and then our kids still want to eat what kids eat.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I think that all of those, or again, the lifestyle, that kind of stuff, just in general.
Yeah, just kind of going personal. I think a lot of people, I would assume, are intrigued by my family relationship dynamics.
Yeah.
I'm sure they're like, what goes on with
Yeah.
this woman's life? And I'm very open. I'm really out there.
Yeah.
I have 3 kids. I'm married to Aaron. You guys have seen the pictures. If you follow me
Mhm.
on Instagram, all of those things. And our relationship dynamic is so bizarre. I mean,
Yeah.
I think it is. It's just
It's not
non-traditional.
traditional. Yeah.
It's unconventional. There's no 2 ways about it.
Yeah.
I when it comes to what do we eat and how do we do those sorts of things,
Yeah.
we we should eat more together. We don't.
Yeah.
We don't eat together as much as we should, which
Yeah.
is I think I mean, I would love your opinion as like as a dietitian from a nutrition
Mhm.
standpoint. I feel like if we would not be so busy and chaotic and eat together, we would eat better,
Yeah.
perhaps, like everyone.
Yeah. It's
It's
generally the kind of consensus is if we sit down for a meal, And of course,
Mhm.
it depends on what you serve. I mean, there's no two ways about what you put on the plate makes a difference. But I
Yeah.
think when we can all sit down, you tend to have more. First, you get more connection in those relationships.
Yeah.
But then also, you're more mindful of how you're eating. You're probably
Mhm.
going to eat slower because your kids are going to ask you 1,000
Yeah.
questions or tell you about their day, and
Yes.
and all of that kind of stuff. So there is definitely, and there's research behind that as far as like that dynamic. And that's a good point to bring up because again, that's something that as you're prepping for surgery, can
Yeah.
you start to implement some of these types of things? And I think that's totally a thing to do because it's going to benefit the person that's going through surgery. It's going to also benefit that
Mhm.
family dynamic. And then you can have those conversations that are going to come up over the mealtime anyway of, well, why is mommy eating differently? Why is daddy's food different? Like we can talk about that, but then it can be in a more neutral way.
Yeah, oh my gosh. I mean, my kids always are obsessed, and I guess I don't say like I must say it a lot.
Yeah.
How much sugar is in this?
Yeah.
They're obsessed with asking how much sugar, and my mother-in-law, I can tell, just cringes like, "Ugh, these kids are gonna be weird." But they
Yeah.
do ask. That does not stop them from eating it.
Right.
And I've told this to you before. There was one time we were doing like a Fit February challenge,
Mhm.
and every day I would put like what Aaron and I were eating. And then in one of the pictures, the kids were in the background and they were clearly eating like chicken nuggets and fries from
Yeah.
like Chick-fil-A or something.
Yeah.
And we were eating this like uber healthy chicken breast on a salad and all the things. And somebody wrote on the post, well, why is it that you guys are eating healthy, but the kids are eating junk?
Yeah.
And people like jumped on her like, oh, for a break. But I was like, she's absolutely right.
Yeah.
She is right. But gosh, Hannah, you're gonna see here.
Yeah.
It's you think you're a dietitian. You follow the lifestyle.
No.
But like oh my
The
gosh, the
reality is so
school, yes,
different.
the reality.
Yeah.
I'm like, I cannot control what they get at school. They get free meals now
Yeah.
and breakfast and lunch that they get. And
Yeah.
it's like, oh, cool. It's like it's donut day. I'm like, "Oh, donut
Yeah.
day. They get milk and everything. There's always juice. Like you can't like say, you don't ever drink that. You don't drink
Yeah.
juice. You don't drink things with sugar. Like,
Well, and again, that's where it is that dynamic, and this is just going off of like it's that healthy relationship with
yeah,
food of recognizing when those things are appropriate and how often, like
yes.
and disconnecting that idea of like good and bad foods or healthy and unhealthy, which then is unfortunately the schools then teach it that way. It's a whole thing. Like
I know. There's a lot.
kids eating is a big topic. I always tell my patients, this is just a total promo. I've never actually used their services, but I follow them on Instagram. I tell my patients with kids, I love the account Kids Eat in Color. They're on
Mm,
Instagram, and I think that's their website as
okay.
well. Kids Eat in Color. It's a dietitian, it's a speech language pathologist is on their team. They have a psychiatrist on their team,
Wow.
or maybe it's a PTOT. They have some sort of therapy that helps with all. So they look at like picky eating is a big thing of theirs. Um, so I always talk to people about that one. So that's just my like tangent, like
Yeah.
call out. But um, yeah, I think it is interesting. And this again, this goes into like these are the things that should be considered when we're
Mhm.
looking at going and making a huge lifestyle change for one person in, especially in a family,
Yeah.
because it is going to impact that. And then but again, how do you make that fit into your family's life? Because the kids do eat differently from the parents oftentimes. Now, do I think kids should generally eat what we're serving? Yeah. So if we're
Mhm.
serving quote unquote kid food
Right.
all the time, that's what they're going to eat. But if it's that or nothing because they're a picky eater, we're
Mhm.
going to go with feeding them the food
Yeah,
because they need the food.
I know.
And that's
Yeah.
the end of it. It's the same with the breastfeeding versus formula feeding.
Yeah.
Is breastfeeding like the gold standard? Yeah, but if it's not working for you, give them formula. Like absolutely, or do
Yeah.
both. Just don't do neither. Like
Yeah,
that's all that
exactly.
matters. Like
Exactly.
so.
I mean, and yeah, there's so many aspects of all of that.
Mhm.
So I think we we've gone through all the considerations. I would love to hear what our patients think. I
Mhm.
hope that we can have a spirited conversation maybe in our support group.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, speaking of, they do post in the support group as that safe place that
Mhm.
their partners or their kids or whoever who's
Mhm.
putting this kind of
Or parent.
pressure. Oh, yes.
Sibling.
Siblings, there's a lot of dynamics,
Yeah.
relationships are
Yeah.
out there.
Obviously, we focus mostly on romantic relationships, but I think a lot of this can play in um with those other ones. And kind of going back, I know we're wrapping up here, but that's one thing that I feel like the change of it, and that is
Mhm,
something, and I think what we see too, especially in the family dynamics and sometimes in the relationship dynamics, is two people or more people who have always struggled with their weight.
mhm.
And I think that that is where then you can start to see either inadequacy, a feeling of inadequacy from the person who's not going through surgery, whether that's a
Mm,
parent or a sibling or a partner of like, well, they're gonna do it, but I'm not going, I'm not ready yet. And that's totally fine. It's not to say that anybody has to do this or has to be ready, but
right.
I think that that feeling really plays into a lot of it too. And then it's a control thing as well. I
Yeah.
think there's a lot of that goes on.
I hate seeing that. We
Yeah.
see it, and it's hard to accept
Mhm.
strong, fierce,
Yeah.
independent females.
Yeah.
It's hard to see, like, but
Yeah.
we
Someone
understand.
coming out of their shell and
Yeah.
becoming that person too.
Like, come here, we
Yes.
got
We
you.
got you. Your babies.
I know. We just want we want the best for you. And if you feel
Yeah.
that surgery is that, then sometimes you're up against a lot of
Yeah.
external
And
forces.
this is also where I would say if this is something that you're recognizing as you're approaching
Yes.
this, you're getting pushback from anybody, look to like a mental health professional, seek a therapist, seek a marriage counselor,
Yes.
like really dive into this. Or if whatever your support system
Hmm.
is, try to find that and have those conversations and try to lay it all out on the table of like, why are you so resistant to this? Are you just afraid of surgery? Are you afraid that I won't wake up?
Yeah.
Are you afraid I'm going to leave you? Are you,
Hmm.
what is it that is so concerning for you? And because there's probably a way through it as well
Hmm.
to figure out like, okay, well, that's what's bothering you. Let's take the next steps to resolve that.
Yeah, I think those are great action steps. I mean, we talk a lot and we recognize the problems, and uh, we should be good, to be able to live out our dreams and push
Yeah,
forward with it.
absolutely. All right. Well, as always, like you said, we want to hear from you. Let us know how things are going. If your relationship is like rock star and amazing and you're like, having great things happen after surgery, we'd love to hear it. Of course, if you have any questions or concerns, don't hesitate to reach out to us. You can find us at DoctorXDietitian on Instagram, at our website, DoctorXDietitian.com, at Dr. Dovek, at hannahschuyler.rd, anywhere. Just look us up. You'll find us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. We got it. So, well, on that note, we should continue this conversation
Mhm.
after the new year with a support group that we do via Zoom.
Yes.
So be part of that conversation.
Mhm.
And it's
Bring your
always,
spouse.
there you go. It's always an intimate place of us really just sharing and getting
Mhm.
into it. So
Yeah.
we can go for it.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining, and we'll see you guys next time.
See you then. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.